recording live from Glory Hole Studios in Chicago and beyond. This is Cognitive Dissonance. Every episode we blast anyone who gets in our way. We bring critical thinking, skepticism, and irreverence to any topic that makes the news, makes it big, or makes us mad. It's skeptical, it's political, and there is no welcome mat. Today is Thursday, September the 19th. And let's see, there's been an assassination attempt since last we talked.
Since last we talked, there's been an assassination.
Attempt. They're becoming so commonplace at this point that it's like, you know.
When this one happened, again, what happened is there's always this like really fast flurry of both sides blaming the other side that it's their guy.
Yeah.
What I saw was just a constant stream. If you check the time codes, even go to like Twitter, tons of people are like, he's a leftist. Look, you can tell he's a leftist. He's a leftist. And then other people are like, he's a Republican. Here's this other stuff, this proof that he's a Republican. And it's all this back and forth. But at this time around, I didn't see any real major news. I mean, I saw some. Clearly they covered it, but that first attempt was so different in comparison to the second one.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, it's one thing I always find interesting, because there were attempts on the lives of most presidents, actually. Like, there was a guy who shot at the White House while Biden was in the White House. There was a guy who tried to fly a private plane toward the White House when Obama was in charge.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
But like, we tend to do this thing where the more successful the assassination attempt, the more politically important it is, even though that's not true.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just because somebody is more successful. So like the first one with Trump, the guy got very close, right?
Close.
Like as close as you could possibly get.
Yeah.
Like with an earshot. So like he got as close as possible without. So we think of that as being more politically important, but it's not any different.
Yeah.
It's literally the same thing. It's just like this guy was more bungling. That's it. Trump got shot at, or he didn't even get shot at. The guy was in the bushes. The Secret Service shot at him. He ran away, got in a Nissan. Somebody took a picture of his license plate.
And he was like on the run for a while too.
Yeah. And it turns out he's a fucking nut. Like, I mean, just like from everything that I've read, the guy is a bit unhinged. Yeah. Like they interviewed him. The New York Times interviewed him back in 2023.
Yeah, I listened to the Daily with him, with that guy who interviewed him. Yeah.
Yeah. And like and I read the article that they interviewed him for. It was like stolen valor and like corruption in the Ukraine, where like people are going over and, you know, playing a bunch of fucking war games for money and bullshit over there. So he kind of sounds like a bit of a fucking nut, and he did some nutter stuff. I mean, that kind of seems all that's involved here. He doesn't seem to be terribly like, he's not a fucking like Manchurian candidate plant, right?
Yeah, and
like,
I think a lot of these guys that do these sorts of things, they're not who you would expect they would be, right? You would expect that with the sort of partisan sort of politics that are playing, that someone very partisan might be the person who would pick up that very specific weapon to go at, but that's not what's happening. In the one case, you can't really point to, he was a registered Republican in the first shot.
Right.
And you don't really know why he did it, other than maybe just for notoriety. And then the second guy voted for Trump initially, and then later became a Nikki Haley supporter. So you have this, you know, clearly he doesn't like Trump.
Right. Yeah. Rabidly so.
Doesn't like Trump. Yeah. But at the same time, it's not the same people you would expect for it to be. At least for me, it doesn't seem like it. And one of the things that they said, and I want to reiterate this, because they tried to stifle language around Trump by saying, you got to stop calling him a threat to democracy. This guy wrote this on his Twitter or whatever. And, you know, that's the reason why he did it. And I will say, the moment he stops being a threat to democracy, I will stop saying it.
Yeah, I'd be delighted for this not to be true.
But don't tell me that I can't say it if it's not. I mean, it's true. It's 100% true. Yeah. And then they said, you can't say that, you're causing people to try to attack him. And then they put a supercut together of JD Vance and him calling Kamala Harris a fascist.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and where were these same calls from the right when somebody broke into Pelosi's home?
That's the same thing, yeah,
and
right?
beat Paul Pelosi nearly to death with a fucking hammer. Yeah. We're trying to assassinate Nancy Pelosi, and like Trump Trump actively is mocking this situation.
His son posted a picture of like underwear and a hammer and said, "That's my Halloween costume this year."
Yeah, and Jesus Christ. And Trump in his like in a rally not that long ago was like, "Yeah, you know, Pelosi's got a wall. Look what good that did, or didn't protect her." Talking about like how these guys have walls, and if it's good enough for Nancy Pelosi, why isn't it good enough for America? And then he's like, not that it did her very much good. And I'm like, that kind of undercuts your wall narrative
really
here.
kind of attacking your own narrative.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense.
But like obviously we should not condone or support political violence. That is not how a democracy functions. We cannot have a rule of law that is in any way influenced by violence or threats of violence. That we've said that before at the first attempt. What I will say is the Secret Service fucking sucks at their job. I think that this is just at this point clear. Yeah. There's been scandals within the Secret Service around their behavior in recent past. They didn't clear the fucking building that had a clear sight line to the stage in the first one. They did not clear and sweep the perimeter of the fucking golf course where the president was going to be. These guys are not like fucking criminal masterminds. Yeah, these are like young people and goofballs, and they're getting within firing range of a fucking major presidential candidate with weapons on them. What is happening, man?
I feel like you're right here. That this is something that these are not attempts made by masterminds.
No, these are not like this is not some like fucking French assassin or some shit from a good movie. Yeah, you know.
Should we blame the government or blame society, or should we blame the images on TV? Now blame Canada, blame Canada. It seems that everything's gone wrong since Canada came along. Blame Canada, blame Canada. We need to form a full assault.
The fuck is going on? All right, so let's talk about some other stuff. See, so what's going on in North Carolina?
Oof.
Anything interesting? Before we do that, can I read a quote? I want to read this quote from a recent Trump rally in Los Angeles. In response to California's water crisis, Trump had this to say. Donald Trump announced Friday that he wants to turn on a very large faucet to get Canadian fresh water flowing into California. Quote, "You turn the faucet and it takes 1 day to turn it. It's massive, the size of a large wall, and it takes a whole day to turn. And if they turned it back, all that water would come right down here and right into Los Angeles. I'm going to give you more water than almost anybody has." So that's a thing that you can watch a video of him saying at a fucking rally in Los Angeles when he's asked like, "Hey, what are you going to do about the water crisis?" Well, he's going to go to Canada and he's going to turn their big spigot in Canada and take the Canadian water by turning their faucet on. He cannot be allowed. To be taken seriously. The media sane washes this guy.
They do
so much.
They do. Would you trust him to even just turn your oven on? Would you, an 8-year-old, you could say, "Hey, can you preheat the oven for me?"
Right.
And they probably can. Right. They could probably go through the steps in order to preheat an oven. I would be terrified if I asked him to close the garage door. I would be afraid to ask him to do it.
Yeah. No. Look, if you were like, "Hey man, can you go outside and it's getting cold. Can you go outside and disconnect the hose from the side of the house?" We're going to winterize the house. Sure, you just go outside and disconnect the hose from the side of the house. Like, make sure the spigot's off. He'd be in fucking Canada trying to negotiate a giant imaginary spigot with the fucking Wizard of Oz or whatever.
Comes back in. I turned it on. You now have more water than anyone.
Jesus Christ, what a fucking dipshit. God. So here's a story that is just a fucking wild ride. It's a wild ride. It's from CNN. "I am a black Nazi." North Carolina GOP nominee for governor made dozens of disturbing comments on porn forum. So
can we talk about a porn forum for a second?
We have to. I think we have to.
This for a second?
Yeah.
Look, man.
So he's on Nude Africa is the porn
Here's the
forum.
Thing, man. I get it. You want to enjoy pictures or videos of illicit sexual activity? Hats off to you. Very proud of you. Enjoy
Jimmy,
yourself.
hats off to you.
Enjoy yourself. Yeah. You want to get out your pumpable lotion and hang out with your computer open and peruse whatever it is you want.
A little me time.
But are you lotion fingers typing comments after your little plea session? Like what is compelling you afterwards or maybe during? Who knows? I mean, maybe it's a one-handed
Maybe
comment.
you're taking a break.
It's an offhanded comment. But he's typing it, and then he's like, you know what? I don't like her elbows. They're too pointy. I don't. What are you saying?
So this guy, this North Carolina governor, he goes by the name Mini Soldier. That's his moniker. And the CNN article, you guys, they do such a good job, like an extensive, excellent, unbelievably good job of being like, we know this is him, and here's how we know.
Yeah.
And they trace it back in like 7. I'm not even kidding. Like 7 points of redundancy.
If this wasn't him, because they find the same username, right? So same username. They find it has the same birth date. They find that it has the same anniversary date based on comments that he makes. If someone was to do something like this, it would have to be a crazy long con that was 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old. No one's going to do this that far in the past to do some sort of trolling of someone and never mention it until now.
No.
It's 100% Occam's razor, but then also, like, you're right. There's so many points here that you think, come on, it's got to be this guy.
It is 100% this guy. There's nothing as certain as this. Like for real, there's nothing as certain. We'll go through the article because it's worth going through, because this guy is the active GOP nominee. When I sent this story to Cecil, I'm like, these are their guys.
Yeah.
This is the best they have to offer. This is a swing state.
Yeah.
This is an incredibly important state for the GOP to have and to hold and to govern through. And these are the guys that they are backing. These are the guys they are vetting. Remember, they are vetting these candidates. These are their guys that they're saying, that's my fucking guy. So let me read this. Mark Robinson, the controversial and socially conservative Republican nominee, the governor of North Carolina, made a series of inflammatory comments on a pornography website's message board more than a decade ago, in which he referred to himself as a black Nazi and expressed support for reinstating slavery. Despite a recent history of anti-transgender rhetoric, Robinson said he enjoyed watching transgender pornography. A review of archived messages found in which he referred to himself as a perv. The comments, which Robinson denies making, predate his entry into politics and current stint as North Carolina's lieutenant governor. They were made under a username that CNN was able to identify as Robinson by matching a litany of biographical details and a shared email address between the two. Many of Robinson's comments were gratuitously sexual and lewd in nature. They were made, which I don't care about.
Yeah, I don't care about
They were made, it's on a fucking porn forum. Who gives a shit? They were made between 2008 and 2012 on Nude Africa, a pornographic website that includes a message board. The comments were made under the username Mini Soldier, a moniker Robinson frequently used online. Robinson listed his full name on his profile. He listed his full name on his profile for Nude Africa, as well as an email address that he used.
I feel like it's different. I mean, not for you, but for me, it's very different. Listing my full name, right? My full name is not unique, but certainly close.
Right.
Your full name, not. His, not. Mark, who cares? There's a million Mark Robinsons.
That's pretty anonymous,
so,
right?
It's pretty, it's almost the same.
My name is John Smith. Yeah, right. Yeah. All right. But he listed his full name on his profile, as well as an email address that he used on numerous websites across the internet for decades. Now, there's only going to report a small portion of his comments because, they're graphic in nature. They were graphic. Right? So, fine. Then they've got this fucking diagram of fucking push pins and yarn that show how everything is connected. And it's pretty,
I mean, there's like a picture of him. There's they're showing what his name is as a username. Then they're showing his email address that he used. And that email address is connected to both the porn site and this other account that he used. It's showing his birthday.
It's on his Pinterest, his Discus, his YouTube, his Facebook, his Black Planet, whatever.
Yeah.
So come on.
Yeah.
That's him. All right. So let me go through a little bit. Many of Robinson's comments on Nude Africa stand in contrast to his public stances on issues such as abortion. This is the important part.
Yep. The rest of it is who cares, right? If he's commenting or looking at porn or whatever, that's not as important as this part.
Right. This is the juice. Publicly, Robinson has fiercely argued that people should use bathrooms only that correspond to the gender they were assigned at birth. He's also said transgender women should be arrested for using women's restrooms. If you're a man on a Friday night and then all of a sudden Saturday you feel like a woman and you want to go in the women's bathroom in the mall, you'll be arrested or whatever we got to do to you, Robinson said at a campaign rally in 24. We're going to protect our women. Yet privately, under the username Mini Soldier on Nude Africa, Robinson graphically described his own sexual arousal as an adult from the memory of secretly peeping on women in public gym showers as a 14-year-old. Robinson recounted the story as a memory he said he still fantasized about. Quote, I came to a spot that was a dead end, but had 2 big vent covers over it. It just so happened it overlooked the showers. I sat there for about an hour and watched as several girls came in and showered. CNN is not publishing the graphic sexual details of Robinson's story. I went peeping again the next morning, but after that I went back. The ladder was closed. So the ladder was locked. So those 2 times were the only times I got to do it. Memories. In other comments, he discussed his affinity for transgender pornography. Quote, and this is what he said, guys. I'm just reading. I like watching tranny on girl porn. That's fucking hot. It takes the man out while leaving the man in. And yeah, I'm a perv too. In an interview with CNN on Thursday, Robinson repeatedly denied he made the comments on Nude Africa. This is not us. These are not our words. This is not anything that's characteristic of me. Presented with the litany of evidence connecting him with the mini soldier username on Nude Africa, Robinson said, I'm not going to get into the minutia of how somebody manufactured these salacious tabloid lies.
Well, and like I said, it would have to be either you're a time traveler.
Right.
I mean, this is before he got into politics. So it definitely stretches belief if you think that it is someone who's out to get him, right? Stole his email address, used his email address as a way to say, this is this guy. He posted a bunch of stuff that was clearly anti his stances. This is before he had public stances.
Yeah. And, this is also from the article, they go back and they look at what this mini soldier said, and he identifies where he went to college.
Yeah.
This is where this guy went to college. He identifies important biographical details that are accurate to who he is.
Yeah.
The amount of deception is Joker level.
Yeah, you would have to be so in depth to this guy's life. You would essentially have to be him.
It is 100% this guy.
Yeah.
Let's just be it. It is 100% this guy. This guy is a fucking racist and a fucking anti-trans bigot. He's a piece of shit. He is just a piece of shit. We shouldn't be surprised by any of this.
No.
We should not be surprised by any of this. He says more horrible racial shit in here. Talks about reinstating slavery. Says terrible shit about Martin Luther King. He's a fucking horrible fucking person.
Terrible person.
What I think is important about this is the GOP is not abandoning him yet. He is not, they are not looking at this and being like, holy shit, fuck you, bro. You're out. He will get defended until I know that how they work. They do the same thing every time. They did it with fucking that lying liar pants.
Santos.
Yeah. They defend until the last possible second.
Until the very last second. They don't ever want to be wrong.
Yeah.
They can't ever back down on anything. They can't be wrong about anything. And I think they think that if they were to say, sorry, we have to walk away from this guy. He was a mistake to put up. They're basically saying we make mistakes, and they don't like to be the people who say, you know what, made a mistake.
Well, and the GOP for ever since 2015 has been fairly successfully using a reality distortion technique.
Yeah.
Where they just repeat a series of denials until they create a fog of obscurity around the truth. We used to at least have the good sense and the decency and the dignity as people to be like, all right, when there's a scandal and they're caught, if it's our guy, we pressure him to resign. We kick him out of here. We want to have. Now they just pretend that true things aren't true.
Yeah. They'll just say it's not true. They'll just keep denying it, and then their party defends them.
100%. And then they'll blame the Democrat. They'll be like, oh, this is a hit job by the other party. There's no dignity. There's no decorum. There's no civility. There's no honesty.
Well, you are a Nazi.
So speaking of huge pieces of shit, this is a story from The Independent. Trump gives evasive answer on why far-right activist Laura Loomer has joined his entourage amid Republican warnings.
One of the things that is crazy about this, now Loomer has said some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Recently, she said that she tweeted out, if Kamala Harris wins, then the White House is going to smell like curry, and all speeches will be done via call center in India. Right?
That's so fucking racist.
Fucking racist. It's so shitty and racist, right? She said this. It's even so racist that Marjorie Taylor Greene told her to delete it. You should delete this. And then she went on a tirade against Marjorie Taylor Greene, attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene. So
when Marjorie Taylor Greene is the voice of reason in any given room,
that genuinely tells you about what's happening here. But here's what's
the time
so crazy.
cube guy resurrects and is like, wait a minute.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Seriously though, when one college student in some obscure college says something like, we need a safe space in order to talk, the left blows it up as if it's the worst possible thing and every Democrat needs to be condemned because one person said a thing somewhere, right? But then someone who was flying to places on his jet, who is attending memorial services to him, Laura Loomer, a person who is a 9/11 inside job person, went to the memorial service that she thinks is clearly an inside job.
Yeah,
what a weird thing to even attend, but she went with Trump as a plus one of the people in his entourage, right? When that person is surrounding a future presidential candidate and they have racist, shitty views and they have the ear of a future possible president and a previous president, the GOP is like, what? It's just I can't control what she thinks. I don't know. I can't control what she thinks. I can't control what she thinks. But look at the difference when a fucking college student says something in some random college across the country. It's an indictment of everything that is the Democratic Party.
And it's even worse than that, I think, because people like Laura Loomer are not powerless people.
Right.
Like that person on the left, like that college kid, for example, that college kid has no fucking power.
No power.
They have no authority.
Just a random
They're just a
person.
fucking rando, right? They're just like, I would like a shut up, and then they get like screamed down and then, they get made an example out of. But Laura Loomer is powerful. She has a voice. She has a platform. She is somebody who is paid attention to. Now she is somebody who is on Trump's private jet, fucking lackeying around with him, like you said, as part of his fucking entourage. This is a guy who has lunched with neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
Like these are all true things. Like at some point, you are so powerful, you are guilty by association because you are not associating by accident. These are not casual in the room withs, right? Like, I don't think anybody should be in trouble for being in the same room as fucking, some
Jeffrey Epstein
is
a perfect example of that.
I don't even care if he flew on his plane to go to a fucking, charity event,
or something,
right? Like that's nothing. That's literally nothing. It means nothing. But when you are running for president, there's nobody on your plane that isn't on your plane on fucking purpose.
Yeah.
That's it. Everything he's doing is for a purpose, for
you didn't
optics.
pick up a hitchhiker.
Right.
Yeah.
This isn't your buddy from college. That nobody would give a shit. This is fucking Laura Loomer. There's a reason she's on that plane. She's on that plane because she's influential to a base of people that he wants to be seen as being associative with. That's the reason. This is optics for him. He's trying to accomplish something here by bringing Laura Loomer into his entourage. It's not like he needs to know what her fucking thoughts are. He could get her thoughts by calling her on the goddamn telephone. The reason these people follow him around is so he can be seen being with these people, to have prestige and clout with the people that they have prestige and clout with. It's associative. So like, you are guilty by association. You are. When you fucking lunch with Nick Fuentes, you had fucking lunch with Nick Fuentes, man.
Yeah.
That's the thing you now did. You had lunch with a fucking awful Nazi. That's what you did. When Laura Loomer's on your private jet, how many people are on this private jet? It's like 500 people on this jet.
It's a small amount of people.
The fuck out of here with this. Like, oh, she's got a lot of thoughts. I don't know her thoughts. I can't control her thoughts. Thoughts are her thoughts. No, none of that, man. You want to be seen with her.
What about people who say you're only interested in the Middle East for oil?
What? Huh? Oil? Who said something about oil, bitch? You cooking? Oh.
This story comes from Salon. We're creating a story. Vance admits he's making up Haitian immigrant smears. Also, he did say that people from Haiti were from Haitian.
Yeah, Haitian. I did see that.
Did you see what he's like?
From Haitian.
These immigrants, a lot of them from Haitian. God, you fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
And then also from Salon, third day of bomb threats inspired by Trump lies send Springfield hospitals into lockdown. The threats, which already closed government offices and caused school evacuations, come as Trump pushes racist lie. This is, when I first heard the story that the right was pushing the idea that Haitian immigrants were eating dogs and cats and ducks out of the pond, I actually laughed because it was so absurd. It was so insane. It was so like hyperbolically crazy that I thought it would just be almost like grist for the funny show that we do.
Sure.
Not even for the politics show. Never even occurred to me, Cecil, honestly, that would be more than like a weird little speed bump of like, I just said a crazy thing. Like, aren't they crazy? They're doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down.
Yeah.
Like fintupling down, whatever the next thing is.
Yeah, man.
Like into this, and they're pushing this narrative now that like wasn't just a soundbite, wasn't just like a quick weird, cavifafe, one-off. Now this is something they're like taking to the bank. And JD Vance has said, like, yeah, if I got to make shit up to get attention, I'll make shit up to get attention.
Yeah, he said, I've got to create a story to reach the American people, I will. And then they called him on it. In the same interview, a minute or two later, she said, you said you're creating this story. He said, oh, come on. You know what I mean? I mean, making the story so that it's more notable for the American people, essentially advertising the story and letting people know about it, not creating it from whole cloth. But you can't, look, man, if you're not good with speaking, don't do it for a living.
Yeah.
You just that maybe shouldn't be your job. If you can't put a string of words together, you're an important person. People hang on every single word. This isn't just, you're not just some random dude. And when they first picked JD Vance, I didn't really know a lot about him. What I knew about him was the big stuff. And the big stuff was he just felt like a marshmallow that could easily be implanted with other things, right? He could easily be stamped at the Gorilla cookies, right? You could easily just be like, punk, and be like, I'll make him whatever I want.
Right.
That's what he felt like to me. Because I'm not from Ohio. I don't know a lot about him.
Right.
The only stuff I know is the sort of broad stroke stuff that gets played in the major media. So I don't know a lot about him. But I'll tell you what a fucking piece of shit this guy is. I initially thought, he's like a Ted Cruz.
Right.
Just kind of bumbling, bad, doesn't really know how to interact with other human beings. So he's gonna always kind of be awkward and fucking Addams Family-esque in every single interview he's in. So he's always gonna be kind of funny is what I thought. But this is such a damaging, shitty, and not new lie, right?
Yeah.
This is something that's been done forever to otherize other groups, right? You talk about what they eat. You gross out people by saying they eat gooey, gross shit.
Mm-hmm.
You say, look at how gross those people are because they do this. Look at how horrible they are because they eat your pets. Look at what they're doing. Look at how gross and grotesque their culture is. Their culture is below our culture.
Yeah.
Those people are below us. That's what this language is. This
100%, man.
This is not anything but horrifyingly racist, right? And finally, I want to just say, I saw this on Twitter and it's 100% true. You don't just like walk up and grab a goose. Have you ever fucking been near a goose, right? You run from a goose.
Dude, yes.
If a goose is coming at you, you don't look at it and be like, man, that looks like dinner. You're like, fuck you.
Yep.
And then you run. Nobody just walks up and grabs a goose and takes it home.
No,
that doesn't happen.
That does not happen. And I've got plenty to add to the substance, but I will tell you that I've taken up cycling and I ride this path up and down this river. There's a bike path up and down the river near us. And I ride down that path. And in the spring, that path is fucking littered with geese and their goslings. And they are very protective over those goslings. And there have been more than one occasion where I've stopped my bike, hopped off, and put my bike between me and the goose.
Yeah.
Because that fucker's like coming at me. And I'm like, even at fucking 15 miles an hour, I'm like, nope, get off I don't want to get knocked off my bike by a fucking goose. Man, I'm not stopping and grabbing one and like tucking it under my arm and eating it later.
Such a stupid comment.
And like, it's funny because I hadn't thought about that in exactly those terms. I want to yes and that. When I was a kid, one of the racist tropes that went around was about Chinese food being full of dog meat.
Sure.
And that was absolutely a racist trope meant to otherize people, to your exact point, by saying they are so beneath us that they eat our pets. Now they're doing it to black people. They're doing it to the Haitian community. This is this is clearly just a repackaging of the same fucking 80s, 90s racist tropes that, that we grew up with.
It goes back all the way back to the birth of this country.
Yeah, 100%.
It goes back all the way back.
And like, one thing I want to point out about JD Vance is like, he's not allowed to back away from that comment. Yeah. And here's why. Because it's a lie.
Yeah.
He is when you are lying and you know it. And guys, he knows it. He doesn't believe in his heart of hearts that this totally unverified claim is true.
You're absolutely right.
He knows it's a lie.
You're absolutely right.
And he is creating a story. He's not amplifying a true thing that he believes is true.
Right.
He knows it's a lie. When we lie, we are lying and we fucking know it. This is a guy who fucking is aware. He is conscious and sentient and happy to say untrue, racist shit out loud, whatever it takes to motivate other racists. That's the other thing. This story works on a base of people because they too are racist. This is a call by a racist to other racists. Yeah. That's what this is for. There's a reason it doesn't work for you and I, right? It doesn't work for you and I because I'm like, that's just not a true thing. I know on a gut level, I know on an intuitive level that this isn't true. And then I also know how to fucking fact check things.
Sure.
I know this is not true. It works for these other people because on a gut level, they're fucking racist. Mm-hmm. And he's saying, he's getting his fucking conch horn and he's blowing his fucking Ku Klux Klan horn into the fucking air as a clarion call for all the other racists to show up and punch the fucking racist ticket.
That's absolutely true. And they're attacking their status. The other thing they're doing is attacking status on these people. They're saying they're here illegally. And I've heard it said by Trump and by him multiple times. And that's just not true.
They're not here illegally.
That's not true.
Thank you.
They have temporary protected status. That happens when you're a refugee from a country that is in the throes of a fucking coup. People left en masse because they were afraid for their life. And they fled the country because they were afraid they were going to be injured or killed in their own country. And they came here. And that little area there of Springfield, they were talking about like how horrible it is. But really, the people of Springfield, right after the story came out, immediately went to all the Haitian restaurants. They were full. There was pictures of it online, a bunch of like photos of them all. They're full. People waiting outside to come in because they don't want to participate in this racism. The governor there, who's a Republican, is even saying, this is horrifying and racist. Please stop doing this. And even still, they cannot take their foot off the brake. They can't take their foot off of it and say, enough's enough. You know what? We're just going to bet. Even if they were just be like, we agree to disagree. Okay, let's move on. They're still not even doing that.
No.
They're saying, no, this is true. And to your point, they're just calling out to the racists.
Yeah, man. And this is part of that reality distortion shit that they do. They're trying to fucking like Truman Show America into believing that the set piece that they've made is an accurate set piece. It's not, and it never fucking was.
And you know, one of the stories was that they're sending in bomb threats to different institutions there, schools and hospitals. This is a place where you keep on turning up this racism, otherizing and dehumanizing groups of people. There will be violence against those people.
There will, man.
That is how that works. That's how all that works. This is not, you know, they want to talk about how bad the left is about everything. It's like, inclusion never got their ass kicked. You know what I mean? That is the place of exclusion. So when that happens, you are essentially tuning up your entire audience to go after those people.
Dude, we just had Marsh on the other day.
Yeah.
And this is the exact same thing.
Exactly.
They were going to burn people alive in their apartment building. They were barely stopped in England. They were barely stopped from burning other human beings alive. This is the same thing. A thing that didn't happen has been amplified by a bunch of power-hungry dipshits seeking to leverage the gullible into giving them more power. And as a result, the people that are eating shit here, that are being otherized and they're being dehumanized, will be the subject of terrible violence.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have such sights to show you.
So this story comes from ProPublica. 2 women die in Georgia after they couldn't access legal abortions and timely care. This is a sad, upsetting, but like, I think importantly, inevitable and repeatable story.
Yeah. We saw Trump recently in the debate, and one of his answers, because they had a question about abortion in this country, abortion access for women, and Trump said he did what everyone wanted, Democrats and Republicans, by sending it back to the states. And that is the biggest fucking lie.
Yeah.
And they didn't call him on it there. Nobody said anything to him about that. They fact-checked a couple other things that he said. But this in particular, this is something that they should have fact-checked, because that's just not true. What happened when they sent it back to the states was they created these essential black holes in the country where there is just not an opportunity for thousands of miles, not thousands, hundreds of miles, maybe close to 1,000, where there is no abortion access because several of these states all agree that there shouldn't be in this particular state. So when they sent it back to the states, they created essentially anti-abortion coalitions between states where there is no access, there is no care, there isn't things, and these aren't stories that are crazy stories where someone is, trying to have a baby and they kill it while it's on the like Trump was trying to say again. Trump was saying, they did call him out on this particular piece when he said that you could have a baby and then they just kill it, and they said that doesn't happen, and he said yeah it does, and they said no it doesn't, and then he asked the next question. But Trump would say something like that. This was a woman who already was a mother, who had a 6-year-old, got pregnant, and found out that she was going to have twins, realized that was just going to be way too much for somebody. She was 9 weeks pregnant. There is no way that isn't but a speck. It is a nothing. It is not anything at that point. This isn't a full actualized human being, but the mother was. And you let her die because everybody's terrified in that state to do anything to any woman who has had any kind of procedures before, because they're so afraid of having jail time, because these people have turned it into a penalty to help women who want to have some kind of procedure done, even if they're going to fucking die. And she did. She did, because they were so afraid that they had to bring the doctors there. And I'm going to read part of the story, but like the doctors needed to make sure that they brought her right to the edge of death before they felt like, okay, now I won't go to prison for trying to save this woman, and they miscalculated, and she fucking died. So I want to read what happened. She showed up at Piedmont Henry Hospital in need of a routine procedure to clear from her uterus called a dilation and curettage, or DNC. Just that summer, her state had made performing the procedure a felony with few exceptions. Any doctor who violated the new Georgia law could be prosecuted and face a decade in prison. Thurman waited in pain in a hospital bed, worried about what would happen to her 6-year-old son as doctors monitored her infection spreading, her blood pressure sinking, and her organs beginning to fail. It took 20 hours for doctors to finally operate. By then, it was too late. So they had to monitor her for her to get worse. They knew this is antithetical to medicine. In medicine, if you have a procedure that you can do to make somebody not get worse, we do not force people to get worse while we monitor them so that they can be close enough to the brink of death in order for us to not go to jail to save them. This is not medicine. This is not care. This is fucking state-sponsored murder. That's exactly what it is. And there's 2 cases here, but these are not rare, and they're not going to be rare. No. Right? They say that they'll veto, at least Vance said that they would veto a bill if it was a national abortion bill. They couldn't pin Trump down. He wouldn't answer the question at the debate. I personally don't think he would. I think he would 100% pass it. He would pass it in a second. I think it really depends on who speaks to him last in order for us to really know whether or not it would be. But if he had somebody who was convincing enough who spoke to him last, I think he would pass it. If it got all the way through, because a bill like that would be hard to pass.
if it got through the House and the Senate and it made its way to his desk and he saw that that means it's a political winner, he'd sign in a second.
Yeah, you know what? You're not wrong. It's about whether or not it's a winner or a loser, for sure. Yeah.
So if it gets all the way through a Republican-controlled House and Senate, he would see that as a Republican victory, and he would sign that thing in a fucking second.
And I know that they're trying to separate themselves too from Project 2025, but Project 2025 very specifically is all these things that they keep saying where they're like, we got to protect the baby, we got to, all life is precious, we got to, there's all these, they don't say we want to ban abortion, but they say we want to protect life from the very moment of conception. You can pretend that isn't saying they want to ban abortion, but it is saying they want to ban abortion.
Yeah.
They do want to ban abortion. So this isn't going to stop with just this Roe v. Wade stuff where there's, at this point, 20 plus states that have bans, serious bans, bans with felony penalties attached to them. This is not going to go away unless there's some way to change this, like with a national law that you're hoping that with a national law, then maybe we get something that could possibly change it nationally. I also wonder too, if they could just take this to the Supreme Court, if it was a national law and say, hey, in that Dobbs decision, you said it's the state's responsibility, and they may just make that law unconstitutional.
Yeah, who knows? Because we've got a rogue court that answers to billionaires that take them on vacation instead of to the American people.
Yeah, or the far right.
Yeah,
the far right.
So like, but yeah, I mean, 100%, this is what they want. They want to ban abortion. Yeah. There should be no question about that. And if you want to know how certain I am of saying that, just this past week, Republicans refused to sign a bill protecting IVF.
Even though
IVF isn't even abortion.
Yeah.
It's not. IVF wasn't even fucking controversial until a radical judge in Alabama followed the logical precept that if all life begins at conception, he's not logically wrong or inconsistent, but if all life begins at conception, then these fertilized embryos that are used in the IVF process also must be protected. So that effectively creates an impossible legal and moral standard for IVF. That's actually logically consistent. There's nothing inconsistent there. And the Republicans would not get on board and sign a bill and back a bill that protects IVF. These are not people who have our best interest at heart.
Yeah.
They're saying to the American people what they know we want to hear during an election. Oh, yeah, we're not trying to ban abortion. Right? Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are, because you fucking did in 26 states. Like, you can't say you're not trying to do something when you do it 26 times. Well, I mean, how stupid do you fucking think I am?
Well, and the IVF thing is a perfect example of that, right? That's a perfect example of making a procedure available so people can do what you guys want, which is have families, have a family full of people. That's what they keep saying. That's what they want. But they can't get past that logical consistency, like you mentioned, and they can't get it past. They can't figure it out. And think of how many people, all the Republicans have to vote against it.
Yeah.
Because even if just a few voted for it, it would have passed.
Yeah.
Think of how many Republicans. This isn't just, I know that a lot of people want to point to the craziest Republicans and say, these ones are the ones that, but these is every single one of them signed their name to this.
Right.
Every one of them. Even the ones you think are moderate sign their names to this.
Because these guys are still beholden to the religious right.
Yeah.
The reason they can't do it isn't because this is a popular stance to take. It's a deeply unpopular stance. By the numbers, abortion actually polls really well. People like abortion. This is like the fucking Affordable Care Act. People like all the shit in it.
They like it.
If you ask them, do you like this thing? 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 Yeah. What, do you like the Affordable Care Act? No. Because they're fucking stupid.
Yeah.
They like all the stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff that is the thing.
Yeah.
But do you like the thing? No, I don't like the fucking thing. Like abortion polls really well. IVF polls even better. Pretty much everybody supports IVF, except for a religious extremist fringe that are huge donators. Yeah. They donate an enormous amount of money, ironically taken from the people in the pews who fucking disagree by and large by the numbers.
Yeah. In secret.
In secret.
That's the other thing too,
that's
is
true.
that it's in secret.
That's true.
Right? So when you can close that curtain behind you, and it's just you and your ballot, you can do whatever you want.
That's true,
right?
man.
Sign whatever you want. And you see that happen, even in deeply red states, when something like this happens between you and your curtain, you're like, oh, well, looks like I like abortion. I'd like to have access to that. I certainly don't want to be stuck in something like this. And then it gets passed, and they don't get to, like in Ohio, where they were going to say, well, let us make a law where we can change it. Like, fuck you. You can't.
Right. No.
You can't. And then in other places where they tried to do it, talking about Kansas, talking about Missouri, places that are deeply red had an immediate wall put up, because every time anybody closed that thing, like you said, 60 to 70% of them were like, fuck you. Absolutely not going to happen. But it just turns out that publicly, everybody's got to say the same thing. You go to a Trump rally, I guarantee somebody's going to say right to life. We got to protect the unborn, and the whole crowd will cheer.
Absolutely.
No matter what they sign in the fucking ballot box.
Yeah, man. 1,000%. People in that crowd, I guarantee there's people in that crowd that have had abortions that are cheering right to life shit.
Yeah. And they're cheering it because that's what they have to believe in order to be part of this group, right? I have to cheer this in order to be part of this group. But privately, they probably don't agree with it at all.
Well, and then there's also some people who are like, yeah, well, for me.
Yeah. And then that is the other thing too, is if it's mine, then it's moral.
The only thing I think, Cecil, that might stand in the way of a federal ban is I think that wealthy people want to make sure that there are enclaves they can retreat to.
That's why I think there probably won't, if there is a federal, really wealthy people could just go to another country.
That's true.
Yeah.
Ironically, you can go to fucking Mexico City.
Yeah.
A deeply Catholic country.
Deeply Catholic country.
Jokes are not funny right now.
Stop yelling. This isn't helping anything. He's getting worse.
Oh my God, he's really letting it go.
Stories from Reuters. U.S. Secret Service says it is aware of Musk post about Biden and Harris. So
let's read the post just so we have it.
So here's what fucking Elon Musk tweeted. Quote, and no one is even trying to assassinate Biden/Kamala.
And then he put a raised eyebrow emoji, so you know he was kidding, Tom.
Yeah. Well, and then that got taken down because everybody condemned it. Yeah. Pretty much everybody condemned it. And then he said probably one of the least self-aware things ever by a billionaire after he got it taken down. He said, well, one lesson I've learned is that just because I say something to a group and they laugh doesn't mean it's going to be all that hilarious as a post on Twitter. Dude, everyone's paid to laugh at your jokes, asshole.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks that you're like, here's the thing, guy. You're surrounded by a bunch of sycophants who want your fucking money or access to your money or power or access to your power. That's who you're surrounded by. You're a billionaire. It's literally inescapable. It doesn't matter who you choose to surround yourself with. That's one of the things about being a billionaire. Hey, billionaire asshole.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by sycophants who think you're funny. You're not funny.
Also, what's the joke?
Right.
Like, genuinely.
Right, that's a good point.
What's the fucking joke?
Yeah.
What is funny? How is that funny? Explain it to me.
Right.
I'm a comedian. I'd love to hear how saying it's strange that they're not trying to kill Biden and Harris. What's fucking funny about that?
Well, you didn't do a but-umps after it. You got to do a
Seriously,
but-umps.
and I don't think the emoji adds the humor.
No,
right?
No, it does not.
I don't think so I just want to know what's funny about it. And the thing is, it's not. It's not, because what he's doing is he's motivating his shitty base to give him a bunch of hearts because he knows that they're an awful, shitty, terrible group of people. I went on there today, and I went on there because we're doing this Humanist for Harris this week. This will post after it, right? So this is going to post after we do the thing on Saturday night.
Right.
But I went on Twitter because I wanted to retweet something that came out. It was the thing for the show. The puzzle guys tweeted it, so I wanted to go and retweet it. Well, I go on there, and no shit, Tom, I click, and every single one of our notifications, there's 2 that are actually things that somebody said to us. But in the past several months, whenever I go on there and I click notifications, it's all stuff that says like Elon Musk tweeted this. And I'm like, who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
But it goes into our notifications when he tweets because he's shitting out to everybody to say, let him know I tweeted something.
Isn't that the most self-aggrandizing jerk-off fucking public masturbation bullshit you ever heard? To buy a social media company and then say, hey, I want everybody to, hey, engineers.
Everybody knows.
Come in the room.
Yep.
When I tweet something, It's a notification for all users. Everybody wants to hear what I have to say.
Yep.
Holy shit, dude.
And
holy shit, you are masturbating in a fucking school zone, my guy. What the fuck is that?
It's one of those things that I see and I think, well, I don't care about it. And it's all him, right?
Yeah.
It's not like there's a bunch of other ones. It's all him. And then I clicked on the regular feed, and I'm not shitting you. The first thing I saw was an attack on immigrants, and the first comment was a 9-minute long racist video about how, and we're talking like Stormfront racist video, right? We're talking, I had stopped watching after like a minute. I thought this is horrifying. But right on underneath the top comment is a video by somebody who keeps flashing the star, the Jewish star on the screen over and over, talking and showing people like rushing gates and look at where they're coming from and then saying all kinds of horrible shit. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, this is just I just put my toe in.
Yeah.
I'm just touching the very surface of Twitter. And that's what I see. What can I possibly see if I dig and search for it? What is on there that if I look for it?
Yeah.
And this is shown to me within the fucking first 10 seconds I'm on the site. It is an absolute cesspool now. And he specifically made that comment because he knows it's got a huge bunch of traction there.
Yeah, man, this is troll bait. That's what this is. Yeah. And this kind of troll bait has real world consequences.
Yeah, for sure.
It has real world consequences. So much so that the Secret Service had to get involved. When you're tweeting out some shit, and like when Elon Musk tweets shit out, it's not like if you do or I do. It literally goes to every fucker on Twitter.
Yeah.
It goes out. He's got the biggest bullhorn in maybe the world.
Yeah.
Because he bought it. He paid $44 billion for his fucking bullhorn that's now worth about $20 billion.
And he can use it.
But he can do whatever he wants with it. And the Secret Service now has to be like, this shit. We can barely secure a golf course. Now we have to secure the internet.
No, they're not going to be able to do it.
What are they going to do?
What are they going to do? What could, the one thing I wonder though is what the fuck could possibly happen? I wish something bad would happen to him. Not like, I'm talking Secret Service bad. Like they come in and say, no, you're going to get fined or something's going to happen to you. You're going to face some sort of penalty for this. He deleted it for a reason. I don't think he deleted it because he was getting bad pushback because he doesn't give a shit. I think he deleted it because he got told by the Secret Service.
I bet the Secret Service and his fucking lawyers were like, take that shit down.
You better take that down.
What if something happens?
You better take that down.
You want to be responsible? Yeah. You dumb motherfucker? Take that down.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to lose yet another fucking corporate sponsor?
Oh, God.
Who's still on this? Who's still advertising?
I don't know who would possibly want to advertise.
Isn't it like all dick pills and like
it's got to be now because I
fucking Jamba Juice or whatever.
I can't stay on long enough.
Yeah.
For it to know what the advertisers are. To be frank, I just can't do it. It's all racist stuff. That's all I see on.
Sisters, All Hallows Eve has become a night of frolic, where children wear costumes and run amok. Amok. Oh, really, just one child.
The story's from Common Dreams. Analysis shows Trump loyalists have infiltrated election boards in key states. With 102 deniers on election boards in the key swing states, the potential for creating chaos is enormous. There is an analogy in here, guys, that I thought was perfect. And that is that they have worked really hard to make it so that the guy whose job it is to run the scoreboard is now deciding whether or not a point was scored.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really great analogy. These guys at this level, their job is to run the scoreboard. They're not officiating the play. They're not out there deciding whether that was a good catch, whether you were in bounds, whether, and then whether it was a foul, whatever.
Yeah, there's people for that.
Right. There's a different system that does that work. But what they've done is they have infiltrated the mechanics of government in order to create chaos and to damage democracy.
Yeah. And this is what I said before. All they have to do is slow these wheels down just a little bit, because the longer it takes to get those results, the more chance you have that they're going to call fraud. One of the things that Trump said recently, and I think it was somebody else had posted, I don't even know who it was, might have been one of the Trump kids or something. They said that the votes need to be counted between these hours, essentially a 24-hour period from here to here. Basically, one 24-hour period on voting day, and that's it. And then that's the end of the counting. We're done. If we don't get to it, we don't get it. That's the dumbest shit in the world. That doesn't make any sense at all to the people who live overseas, to our troops who are fighting overseas or something like that, or in many of our many military installations all around the world. It doesn't make any sense to the people who happen to be maybe, voting from home who, and before there was widespread voting from home before COVID.
Right.
A lot of those people who were voting from home, they couldn't make it to the polls, right? These are people who are disabled or who just couldn't physically make it to the polls, so they got a ballot at home. You're basically disenfranchising all those people. This is all when you say something like that, what you're saying is, I want the best chance I have to cheat the system, to make it so my guy wins, is to limit voting as much as possible to this particular time. Every single action they have is to limit it in some way. It's never to open it up for more people. It's always to limit it. Limiting voting silences part of our population. That's just true.
Yeah.
Limiting voting silences part of our population. We should never be willing to limit voting for people who can validly vote. And when you say we are only allowing a certain window of time, you are doing just that. They don't care who they disenfranchise.
No, they don't, because they are the anti-democracy party.
Absolutely.
The Republican Party has become antithetical to the very idea of democracy as a form of government, and honestly, as an ideal that we hold as part of this sort of like existential fabric of our nation. I grew up my whole life, I think you did too, really believing that if we didn't believe in anything else together, what we believed in was this idea of democracy. Fundamentally, the fabric that wove us together, even if we were this far apart on every issue, was we all believed that democracy was functionally the form of government that we wanted to embrace, that we wanted to have, that we saw really as the highest ideal of governance. The Republicans are demonstrating that they are an anti-democracy party. You cannot be a democracy if it's a democracy of only a few.
Yeah.
That is not a democracy. That is something entirely different. There's a word for it. I can't remember what it is. It escapes me. But it's not a democracy. It's definitionally not that. We need to put our arms around and embrace every citizen and encourage them to vote.
Yeah.
Like Taylor Swift's message was, get out and vote. Get out and vote. What does she get? I hate Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Get out and vote. She registers 400,000 new voters on the link that she put up, the custom URL that she had. I hate Taylor. Why? Because she's anti-democracy. Because making a choice should be the highest ideal in a democratic country.
Sure.
And they want to limit choices.
And I think, you just got to ask those people, because if you were to ask them and say, do you think that some people in this country who are valid voters shouldn't vote? They would say yes.
Yeah.
They would 100% say yes. That means you're anti-freedom, because I want those people to vote.
Yeah.
Right? The people who think that other people shouldn't vote, I do think that I should count their vote. Right?
Yeah,
that's the difference between me and them, is I think we should count your vote. So I'm pro-freedom, man. I'm pro-democracy. I want to hear everybody's voice. I do think that we are going to get the best thing possible if all of us get together and we don't disenfranchise large groups of people. We allow everybody to speak their piece, and then we have this representative democracy that we live in. That's what I want to see. What I don't want to see is a group of people consistently disenfranchising groups of voters who will not vote for them.
Yeah.
They won't make it so I win. So I want to silence them. That's anti-democracy. That's shitty. And this is all they have to do. I said it before. All they have to do is slow it down. If they slow it down enough and they make it to that one, to make it so it's past that day, if she doesn't win in a landslide this time, and it's up in the air for a couple days, look at how they flipped out when finally it was, who was it? Was it Reuters that called it, or somebody called it? One of these news stations called it and said, this is finally it. these two states flipped. We now think the projections say there's no way that Trump can come back in Pennsylvania and Georgia or whatever it is. Look at how many people, even senators, were like, the media doesn't call who wins.
Yeah.
Yes, they fucking do.
Yeah, they always have.
They always have, and yes, they do.
Yeah, they do. Yep. Yeah, there's a process in place to certify the vote. That is a procedural process.
Yeah.
It's not a decision process. And this group of loyalists, and this article really goes through great pains to define what they mean by a loyalist, a Trump loyalist. These are election-denying lunatics.
Yeah.
Like these are people who
These are stop the Steelers.
Yeah, these are people still talking about the big lie. Like, still. There's 102 of them in 8 key swing states, and they are working on ways to refuse to certify the vote. That's a procedural issue. Like, Trump tried to overthrow fucking American democracy and seize power through a coup just by trying to have Mike Pence refuse to certify the vote. That's a procedural issue.
Yeah.
It's ceremonial,
Yeah.
you know? It's nothing. It's a fucking nothing. This is scary shit. Like they're doing everything they possibly can to cheat at every level, and then ironically are making the most noise about how everybody's trying to cheat and steal the election. It's like it's this fucking la-la land.
If they create enough noise, though, they distract people from the damage that they're doing internally.
Yeah,
and
man.
this is part of it.
It's fucking sleight of hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's political
Exactly.
sleight of hand.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week. We won't know if we reached our goals for Harris, Humanists for Harris, but we're fingers crossed. We'll see what happens.
We believe in the audience.
We believe, and we know our audience is generous, and we know our audience realizes how important this particular thing is. So we hope we hope you'll join us next week. We should have a patron show that's releasing this upcoming Thursday. So if you're a patron, you'll get a patron-only show. So you can always become a patron at patreon.com/dissonancepod or dissonancepod.com. You can become a patron on a per episode basis, and all patrons get this extra show that we put out every month. So consider becoming a patron. You help pay salaries, and really genuinely, you make sure that this show happens. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week. We're going to leave you like we always do with the Skeptic's Creed.
Credulity is not a virtue. It's fortune cookie cutter, mommy issue, hypno-Babylon bullshit. Couched in scientician, double bubble, toil and trouble, pseudo quasi alternative, acupunctuating, pressurized, stereogram, pyramidal, free energy healing, watered downward spiral, brain deadpan sales pitch, late night info docutainment. Leo, Pisces, cancer cures, detox, reflex, foot massage, death in towers, tarot cards, psychic healing, crystal balls, Bigfoot, Yeti, aliens, churches, mosques and synagogues, temples, dragons, giant worms, Atlantis, dolphins, truthers, birthers, witches, wizards.
Show these guys who's
nuts. Shaman healers, evangelists, conspiracy, doublespeak, stigmata, nonsense. Expose your sides. Thrust your hands, bloody, evidential, conclusive. Doubt even this.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/dissonancepod. Help us spread the word by sharing our content. Find us on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and Threads, all under the handle @dissonancepod. This show is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org.